If you are here, you have taken an active role in bettering your life, no matter what stage of life you are in. The Banyan Treatment Center's podcast will discuss many topics like recovery, addiction, self-help, mental health, and so much more. It will provide you with tools to succeed, ideas for recovering, and how-tos on creating a better life. My name is Alyssa, and today's episode is about setting realistic goals for the new year. Today in our panel, we have Matthew Williams, founder of Fro Pro Snacks, legacy ambassador for Lululemon, podcast host for Wake Up the Sun, certified recovery coach, etc. I mean, you just do so many things. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Wow. Tell everyone what Fro Pro is and where they can find it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming
here.
Of
course.
It's always cool. I love traveling for my podcast, but my name is Matt Williams. All the cool things that you did say are cool accomplishments from being a sober man. But yeah, Fro Pro is an organic peanut butter snack bar, deliciously crafted here, locally manufactured in our kitchen, which is right next door and distributed right in the back of where we're sitting, to Whole Foods, gyms, juice bars, online at Amazon. You can find us at froprosnacks.com. Plenty of ways to go about finding us and connecting with us on social media. So that's like the long and short of it.
Well, thank you. And it's a delicious snack, and I can tell you, I can smell it while I'm here. So
they just finished producing. That's kind of like one of the pluses when people come by to get the tour. It's if you catch the end production run, it smells like peanut butter, and it's a pretty awesome smell.
It's 2023, and you're probably thinking of a good New Year's resolution if you haven't thought of one already. How realistic is this goal? Is it something you can achieve short-term or long-term? What is it going to take to achieve this goal? These are all questions you might want to ask yourself while thinking of goals for your recovery journey, especially for those in early recovery. Listen in as we discuss with our guests best practices for setting goals and what it can lead to in a life of recovery. Let's not just set goals, let's achieve them this year.
Love that.
So Matt, our first question is, what is the difference between a realistic and unrealistic goal for someone?
Well, I think in regards to recovery, again, one of the hardest things getting sober was hoping that I would have a quote-unquote normal life again, right? And the struggle of, I felt like I was a professional. I went to school. I achieved some, degrees and masters and all this cool stuff, but I was like really unfulfilled. And a lot of the things that I really enjoyed doing, and again, I love teaching, I love coaching, I kind of took it for granted. So I think, in early sobriety, like setting goals was like initially like, hey, I don't want to drink today.
Right.
And get to the end of the day and rest my head on a pillow and be like, okay, I didn't drink today. That was like the number one realistic goal I could have had. I definitely future tripped or whatever you want to call it, forecasted, or there's a bunch of different words that people use. But there was definitely points in time where I was like, yeah, but I have this wedding, I'm going to this. And the person that kind of helped me out at the time was like, where are your feet right now?
Right.
And what can you do today? What can you accomplish tomorrow? If you get tomorrow, and that was the thing, was just focusing on like little segments, right? And that was like realistic for me. Unrealistic was, looking at like, hopefully I get a year, and like, if I get a year, I'm going to do this. And it was, okay, just again, try to chop it up into small segments. So I think it being 2023 for myself, my biggest thing now, like I thankfully haven't had the desire to want to have a drink or a drug in a long time. So I constantly work, on emotional sobriety, and like kind of one of my mentors and someone that holds me accountable is like, that kind of like bubble, right? That hula hoop of, how am I going to show up for other people, and how am I going to present myself in a way that is honest, open, and not, putting on airs like we can do, and just be like, yeah, this is me. I'm still, an alcoholic, and I'm an addict.
Right.
Fortunately, I have a lot of other things that I'm a husband, I'm a business owner, I'm a coach, I'm a trainer, and just kind of come correct with that every single day that I get. And I still try to keep that as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
With the whole business side of things, I think, my wife and I, we sit down and we talk about that, right? Like before the new year started, we're like, hey, what would we like to do like in our relationship? What would we like to do professionally? What would we like to do in several different categories? And I don't think, when we share with each other, I don't think we're never at a point where like, that's super unrealistic. There are certain levels that, yes, we're eventually going to get there. Right. And I think too, that just comes back to like, again, digesting certain small, relatively achievable goals to get to it. So I don't think I've ever, set something unrealistic. But if you were to say, hey, Matt, like what would be something super unrealistic for you to say? Like, I want to make $20 million by June of this year. It's like, oh, okay. I know that's unrealistic.
Right.
To me. Now, some people will be like, you don't believe in yourself. And there's that other school of thought. But, I feel like if you can break it down into small parts and you can say, this is what I'm going to do day after day, this is what I hope to achieve in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And that's what I also learned when I went through a program in early sobriety, which was sobriety is number one. And then all the other things, if you work your program and you kind of do the things that you did to get sober, you can do that and pretty much anything else you get to do, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love that you brought that up too, because it's so true. People in early recovery having a year sober and, having a relationship with their families might seem unrealistic at the beginning.
True.
And it's like, that's when you have to focus on, okay, just don't drink for today. Don't use for today.
Yep.
That's your realistic goal. But it's such an amazing thing to be able to witness and tell people that unrealistic goal that you think you have can become very realistic in the future.
Absolutely.
Just keep doing the realistic ones day by day.
Correct. I agree.
So why else do you think it's important to set goals in early recovery?
Well, I think you have to know where you want to go. And it's funny. I social media is social media, and, read a lot of quotes and, read motivational things. And I sat down with a buddy and we talked about, like, everybody has these goals. Everybody's motivated to do stuff, but sometimes we don't know where we are. Right. And we don't know how to, it's like, I know where I want to go. I know what I want to do. However, I'm not really sure where I am. And I think, when you get to that point of when you get sober, you hit a bottom and you start over, it's like, okay, now I know where I am. I spun my wheels for years, right? Like, being a coach, being Mr. Williams, teaching this, and then like living a double life, bartending, city, darkness, just like really like illicit shit that just wasn't, true to who I was. So I think like one of the things that writing those out when I was using, I knew I wasn't going to hit it. Like I deep down knew that like, this is just a wish.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not going to put in the work because like, I'm scared. And I was scared of success. I was scared of failure. I was scared of what you thought of me, what someone else thought of me. So I think when you get sober and it's like setting those goals of like, hey, today I want to, go, interview. And, if I'm like early sobriety, I want to go interview at a couple different places. And the places that I interviewed weren't matched up to the education that I achieved. So again, I had to check my ego at the door and I had to have help with that. And someone was like, you're not going to get a job in what you did because remember, you didn't honor that when you were there. So I had to go get like a 10 to 12 hour job, cooking in the kitchen, which is nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But like I had to humble and be humbled from my actions to say, okay, cool. And, say, okay, I'm going to be the best cook for the time that I'm there. I'm going to be the best person on the line for the time that I'm there.
Being realistic.
Right. And keeping it realistic. Right. So I think, having set goals of saying, all right, again, if I'm trying to do something and I want to, again, with like just say Fro Pro, like I had no idea. I was sitting in an office. I was thankful to have a job. And it was one of those things where it was a friend that said, hey, we have something for you. But like they give me projects. I would complete them in 2 to 3 days, but they gave me a week and they said, yeah, just be here to assist if we need you. And that was, okay, I'm going to be here, but I'm also going to look into other things. And that's when I started to kind of like approach different ideas and different things that like I read about. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try this, like see what happens. I definitely want to get back into coaching. How am I going to do that? Who's going to hire me? I was worried. Like I have to be honest. I was told to be honest. And, going to someone like, hey, I just threw away my entire life. I'm 28 years old and I don't have a teaching job. I don't have this. Hey, will you hire me? Not a lot of people are hiring.
Yeah.
But because of being honest, and those are one of the goals, like be as honest as I could be, things and doors started to open. And I had to walk through them and like be courageous enough, thanks to a lot of people supporting me, to actually get it done.
So how did Fro Pro come to fruition?
So it was.
I'm so curious.
Right. So literally the craziest thing, we're sitting in our office. I used to work at an office right down the street for a family friend. Same thing, working on projects, was online. And again, I was biking everywhere or taking the bus. I lost my ability to drive and I was like, I need to make a snack. I made a snack just from trying it out at my house. And there was a couple people that, if I left the office, I would bike to Patch Park, and I would train people. I would train kids in baseball and like do camps and bike to other people's houses and train their kids, like either in education, like we'd do like homework, and I'd be a tutor, and then we'd go outside and, use weights. And like, it was just kind of like the kid comes from school, and I get to do both things with them and kind of help them because like I was good at it. Mm-hmm. And then everywhere I went, I had these little bars wrapped in. They weren't even wrapped in anything. They were just in a bag. And I would eat them, and people were like, "What is that?" And I started sharing them with people. I started, just kind of being like, here, what do you think? And I was nervous.
Yeah.
I thought, if one person was like, "Ugh, that's gross," it would have devastated me.
Yeah.
And there were people that like, I'm not a peanut butter fan, and I like took that like personally, and I was, how do you not like peanut butter? But there's people that don't, and there's people that are allergic. And I knew that from being a teacher, but it just went from those things where it's when someone said, hey, and sat me down and like, hey, what are we going to call this? And I was like, I don't know. It's like frozen protein, Fro Pro. They were like did this whole thing, like went on the computer and like, oh, you can buy this website. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And like I've shared this, it's like the weirdest thing. Like, people helped me when I couldn't help myself, and kind of guided me in that direction. And I handed over my credit card, and I didn't have a lot of money, and it was just like, hey, now you own 10 website domains, and it's gofropro.com, .edu, blah, 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 blah. Now go out and test it. And I was like, if we're talking about goals, I was like, I don't even know what you mean. Like, I don't, like, how? I've never done a business. I've only been a teacher and a coach, and I lost all that because I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict. I'm a loser. That's how I felt.
Yeah. And
it was just through the power of literally just sharing it with people, and eventually with the opening of like my friends at Open Slash, and I'm training there and like getting to interact with people not in sobriety and kind of like quote unquote normal people.
Yeah.
I was like, hey guys, do you mind if I put this out just to see what people think? And please do not tell anybody it's mine, because God forbid that, like I didn't want them to be like, oh, the poor sober kid that doesn't have anything who's 28, that loser. Like, let's be nice and say it's good. Like, that's how
like unbiased opinion.
Right. And people liked it. And someone wanted to try it, and she's like, hey, what's in it? And they're like, and they kind of like gave me the look, and I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to her. And she's like, I can't eat this because I don't do dairy, because I just was using random protein. She's like, can you make it vegetarian, vegan? I said, sure. What does that mean? Change the protein powder. So I went out, changed the protein powder, and I brought it to her. And she's like, this is really good. Bring it to my store. This was before juice bars exploded. And it was a little store in East Boca. And she goes, bring me a sample of it, like wrapped. Mm-hmm. So I brought her a sample. She's like, cool, can you make me 100? I was like, maybe, sure. And I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And I literally made her 100, brought it to her, and had friends that like were lawyers that like gave me a stack of papers that like showed I like was serious. And she laughed, and she was like, how much did this cost you to make? And I was like, I have no idea. And she said, well, here's the deal. I'm going to pay you this when I sell all of them. I learned what consignment meant. I said, okay, thank you. And I left. And 3 days later, she called me and she's like, hey, can you make me 100 more? I sold out. And she put them right at checkout. So when people came in and got their juice or their smoothie or whatever other item they were getting, she said, hey, why don't you try this new product? And people bought it. And it was just like word of mouth. It was just just completely like grassroots of, hey, these are great. Did it a couple times. And she said, hey, talk to my friend in Delray. She's opening a juice bar. Went and talked to her. She ordered a couple. And somebody else. And somebody else. And then it eventually got to the point where we had an opportunity to like essentially walk into Whole Foods corporate, thanks to my wife knowing someone from childhood camp, and literally was like, hey, pitch this product. And we went into, a very scary room.
Yeah, I bet.
With people sitting at a table like this, just kind of like, hands like this, kind of like looking at us, products everywhere. Like they had been pitched all day long. All day long. And I'm talking about first off, they try the product, see a couple smiles, a couple nods, a couple, And then, Chelsea starts talking about the product. I start talking about the product, and there's no like interaction, facial change. And then Chelsea just like flipped the script, and she's like, guys, listen, like we can tell you about our product all day. We can talk about, how great it is, how good it is for you. She's like, but the real truth is like, this is a passion project. Matt's ex-year sober. At that time, I think I was like 5 years sober. She's like, and this is literally something that he did for fun and for himself, and it's grown, and we're sharing it, and this is our story. And that's when that honesty of like, again, we're talking honestly about the product, but like when I shared my story, that's when the guy was like, that's it. And he related to his own family struggle with addiction and alcoholism. And he go, we talked, he said, all right, you're going to have to do this over the next year. And if that gets done, I can't guarantee anything, but if that gets done, you'll have a chance to possibly be in 1 to 4 stores as a test pilot program. And I was like, cool. And we did everything they asked us to do.
Yeah.
And even down to like the FDA, and like Whole Foods has their own like lab coat, white glove service that comes in and checks everything you're doing. And we passed, and they're like, cool, let's give it a go. And we got into 4 stores. Delray wasn't a thing yet, so it was Boca, West Palm, Palm Beach Gardens, and there was one more, Wellington. 4 stores. And I remember we launched in there, and it was great. And then what happened? Amazon bought everything.
Wow.
And I was like, we're done. Like, this is a huge company. That's it. There's absolutely no reason for them to keep us around. Like, what do we, but they took care of the local program, and they kept us around. They like cut a lot of things and a lot of different jobs at the corporate level to like streamline everything, but they kept the local program, and we became kind of like a little champion for them, because they were like, this is a really cool story that a husband and wife did, and like who set out to do something and not to make a business, not to do anything. And, here we are sitting, however many years later, just feeling like we're getting started.
Yeah.
That was an idea in 2011, a business in 2013. In 2016, Chelsea came on board to essentially run it. And now we're here in 2023. It's a women-owned business. She owns a majority of the company because she does it. I can't sit at a desk. We can't have two. I know you run the show. Yeah. I know you run the show at work and at home. Like, you run it, and there can't be 2 chiefs.
Right.
And it really works. Like, there's certain things she's really good at that I'm not, and there's certain things that I'm really good at that she's not. Like, we can both do it, but like we do what works. We have those. This is what we have to do every day. Like, I wouldn't call them goals, but like our job, our operations. And it works, and it got to the point where we're in all of Whole Foods in Florida. We've expanded to 15 states.
It's amazing.
And again, there's highs and lows, and like,
I'm sure
there's tremendous growth, and then some periods of like just kind of like getting by, and then a pandemic hit, and it was like, what's going on? Are we going to be okay? And our gym side of the business, that's like the fun side even too, like that closed. It was just it's a lot, and but I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, I loved teaching and coaching. I loved interacting with, students, with families, and I get to do that with this, right? Like, I get to do podcasts with awesome people, and like I love this. If Chelsea doesn't like this, I love this.
This is your thing. She's got her thing, you've got your thing.
She runs the show, and I get to, we kind of laugh. Like, I get to be the director of fun. I'm the founder and the director of fun. She is the CEO, and we have a director of operations now. We have, we have a really solid team that it feels like a family.
Yeah.
And what can be better than that?
There's so many good messages to your story, just with the business in general, setting goals for yourself, taking chances on yourself, starting a business when you really weren't sure what was going to happen, having blind faith, right? And not really expecting a whole lot out of it. But when you have a good product, you have a good product because the growth happens organically it did. Like, doors just opened in certain areas. And trust me, there was a lot of work, obviously, as you just explained, but I think there's so much that goes back to recovery and like being in the right place and doing the right thing, and like good things just happen to you. Mm-hmm. And then also using your story of recovery and being a changed person in a boardroom with terrifying people at Whole Foods, because people relate and connect, and not being afraid of who you are in your story.
And again, that what it's crazy how like everything unfolds, but to get to that point, I also had to step out of my comfort zone when we did like this like cool project where someone, when I was training at Slash, someone was involved with a marketing company and they were getting essentially hired to make a cool video about a comeback story. And someone's like, call Matt. And I'm like, I read and looked at the other stories of like people's, and I'm like, yo, these people have over, like, I couldn't stop drinking and drugging. Like, yeah. And I'm very grateful to be sober. But some of the stuff that I read and I watched, I was like, I don't need to be in this conversation. Like, I vote for them. You know what I'm saying? And like, I was like stunned to be one of the top 3, and like the community came out, like people that I knew through other people came out and voted, and like we got to the final 3. I was running the New York City Marathon, and bang, the commercial won it, and like it aired, and it was like a cool 15 minutes, but it connected me to a lot of people that were like, hey, I was like folding laundry and like heard a voice and was like, man, that sounds like someone from my past. And I looked and I was like, I thought you died.
Wow.
Or I can't believe you're okay. Or, hey, can we have a conversation? So-and-so in my family's struggling. What do you think I should do? And that was the first time I really stepped out, because the first couple of years, like, I was very grateful to be sober. I was very, I don't want to say proud, but I was like, all right, I'm doing this. This is great.
Right.
Like, I'm back in my family. Like, you know, people can count on me again. Like, I'm accountable. I'm putting in the effort. But I was still, like, incredibly afraid to be honest, right? And to be out there with my story, because I was afraid of what someone would, you know, there's like that stigma to it, right? And I was scared. And then someone, you know, basically had to like set me right, like always, and was like, it really doesn't, like, in the nicest way, I'm sorry for saying this, no one fucking cares, right? Like if you can help someone, and if the people that are upset at you for being honest and sharing your story and think it's not appropriate, screw them. You're helping somebody. And then when that video came out, I was like, oh, I'm helping somebody. And I was reconnecting to people. And again, with social media, like someone sees something and it's like, boom, Instagram, boom, Facebook, boom, TikTok, whatever platform you're on. And I was like, this is incredible. And that's what allowed me to, like, again, stand in front of a boardroom of Whole Foods executives to be like, yeah, like, this is the deal, and not lose my shit. Because I get emotional, and like, this wouldn't have been possible. And again, if I hadn't gotten sober, and the people that were there when I got here, like, if I had done something completely different, you know, because like for years I did something completely different, and like, you know, like stopped doing things for a little bit of time, and like went out and just completely blew up my life repeatedly. Sometimes it took a couple months, sometimes it took a couple years, but like coming into, you know, a fellowship, a program, a community of sober individuals was a game changer. Yeah. And I think that there's again, negative stigma anywhere you go. Florida has gotten its share of bad publicity.
Oh, yes, we have.
but there is a real, true, strong, sober community here if you choose to tap into it. And that's, again, comes down to, what are you going to do? Is your goal to be a sober person, a sober man, a sober woman? And you know, here's what you have to do. Do it or don't.
Yeah, it's so true. You know, there's so many people out there that are sober and successful, and they can, you know, directly thank their sobriety for
100%
that success that they have today. And it doesn't have to be working in a treatment center. Like you said, it could just be the community.
I worked in one I got the experience.
Yeah.
Not only to go through a program, but to work there.
It's just the community.
100%.
You're so right about it. It's the community.
There is the underbelly.
We support each other.
There is
Hence
the underbelly.
why I'm here right now interviewing you.
And this is great. I was like so stoked about this.
Do you think that there's such a thing as having too many goals at one time? Just doing too much?
I'm glad you said it that way, because I was about to say there is doing too much, and I'm guilty of it. And I've had, you know, people in my life that are like, hey man, like, enjoy and be present, you know, because I remember, you know, when I gave you the tour, the first space that we're in before we came into the office side, I remember, you know, when it opened and I was so excited, but I was already on to the what's next.
Yep.
And I wasn't truly, and I talk about that with some, you know, business owners, sober, not sober, just like, you know, it's always trying to improve, always trying to, you know, how can I make this better? How can I serve more? And sometimes I just need to just like be still and like be present and be like, this is cool. And when I get in my head, you know, not to make this like a kind of like, negative or dark type of deal, but like, I'll have someone to be like, hey man, can you do me a favor? If I'm on the phone with them, are you at your office? Cool. Can you walk outside and go look at Clintmore? Isn't that the road that you wanted to kill yourself on when you left jail because you were coming home and your life was over? And I'm like, point taken. Got it. Okay. But, I think it's really good to have goals. I think it's good to have, aspirations. I think what sometimes can be a challenge is having expectations for those things. And those expectations, again, this is not my own language. This is, some of those expectations can lead to future resentments, and resentments at myself, at my loved ones, at those closest to me. And that doesn't serve anything. So yeah, there's definitely times that I've burnt myself out. It's like trying to build this off the ground. It was, for 3 years, it was working at a corporate job, different hours, not even 9 to 5. Training in the morning, going to corporate, offices, being in the kitchen late at night, taking buses to drop off product, like for 3 years straight, and it was exhausting.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I loved it. But there were times, even I think it was like it was like right before COVID, where I just felt exhausted. Mm-hmm. But I loved everything I was doing. I was just doing too much, and like, a mentor of mine was like, hey man, like, you're sober, you have this beautiful wife, you have a nice business, and you have a lot of people that love and care about you. Why don't you like enjoy it?
Be in the now for a second.
I was like, that's a really hard thing to do because of all those little goals you set, because I didn't think I'd ever, like, again, you hear it all the time, right? Like, I'm your husband's probably said it too. If you had told me what my life would be like X number of years ago, whatever it was, I would say you were crazy, probably punch you in the face and run the other way. I wouldn't have believed it. Had you said this in 2009, I'd be like, what? I'm gonna own my own business. I'm gonna be married, own a home, and like get to enjoy cool shit. I would have been like, nah. That's not, you're talking about someone else.
Yeah, those were unrealistic goals for us at that time.
100%.
Been there for sure.
Yeah. Crazy.
It is so crazy.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful life that you can live,
True.
True.
And even, there's even those times when it was like just getting sober and like I laugh, like Chelsea and I will laugh, like having the mattress on the ground, watching 3 DVDs that like on repeat.
No cable.
Like no cable. Not having a ton of money, but like there was limited responsibility. It was like so simple, and it still is. But now there's other people. Again, like you have a family, you're about to have another child, and it's like the accountability and the responsibility just increases in the best way possible. And like I think too, it's like it creates more room to do even more cool shit in life, right?
Yeah.
Like being a mother, being a wife, being a step, like the whole deal, creating a business.
Yeah.
I remember when you showed up and you were making those,
the waffles.
The waffles. And I was like, this is so fucking cool. I was like, this is great because they were delicious and like, what a fun thing.
Yeah.
And it was like, you could see, even though you guys were making them, it was hot, sweaty, but it was just like, they're doing it. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Well, that was our take on it. It was like, we'll just try it and see what happens. And if anything, we just feel accomplished knowing that we tried it and we did it and people loved it.
Loved it.
There's definitely some waffles in the future.
I was going to say, the waffles have not gone anywhere. You can always revive the waffles, for sure.
Do you have any goals that you're currently working on or projects that you're currently working on, the future that you're able to share with us, or?
Yeah, so there's a lot of hurry up and wait. We're waiting on an expansion with Whole Foods. The Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. It's again, all the conversations were had. Pandemic hit. No one's putting a new product in their grocery store. The grocery store experience changed because a lot of people were scared and they sent Amazon or DoorDash, whatever, to the grocery store. So, if you set up in a store and people are just there getting what they're supposed to because they're working, people aren't casually like, oh, let me try this peanut butter snack bar. It's changed. We're back to retail. And I don't think I thought retail was going to die, but it didn't. That experience of like, supporting local is still there and enjoying that process. So yeah, again, being able to do what we did here and like go to stores and meet people and share our story and share our bar. That's what we're going to try and do up the East Coast. That's the goal for this year. Whether it be Whole Foods, whether it be a couple other chains that we've been talking to, we're ready, kind of poised for growth. And again, if it doesn't happen, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's just going to be something that, is going to have to go into goals for the next year. So yeah, we also would like to do, a couple more flavors, like some fun things, and kind of drive some stuff online, because we know online is such a great presence and we can reach the consumer directly. So I think that's a big goal for us, is to like really drive some things. Really exciting news that we brought on. We worked with several different marketing companies, and the last one we worked with, we met this really awesome young woman who, played college sports around here, knew Fro Pro, was excited about it, and then was like, I want to come work for you. And we're like, what does that look like? And she joined the team January 1. I mean, like, we're almost at February, and she joined the team, and like, what a difference, right? Is like having someone that, again, you work with a ton of people in a huge organization, and is everyone 100%? Maybe not. But like, who the studs are.
Yeah.
Who like the people that are going to go above and beyond and put forth 100% effort. And that's what we found. And it's like so refreshing, and it's so exciting, because like when she said, and like, I don't know if she said it, but like, I'm going to get emotional, but she's like, this would be a dream job. I was like,
wow.
I was like, what? And like, I kind of was like, I had to like walk away, because I was like, in no way, shape, or form did I think I'd ever be able to provide an experience. Again, not just me, but like have that for somebody.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it was just cool to hear. And I was like, wow. I was like, okay. I was like, I've been on a team like that before. In high school, and like you had your crew, right? You had your people, and that's like kind of what that's what again, that feeling. It's just it's hard to, I'm like stumbling over my words. It's just hard to describe.
Yeah.
But aside from the expansion online, I've been working on something for 2 years, and it's like it's not there yet, but hopefully be able to provide another SKU of product that hopefully we'll be able to get out there by middle of this year to end of this year, and just some feedback. Nothing crazy. We're a peanut butter snack bar company. We did the almond butter thing. We're not bringing back almond butter, so if you're listening, that's not happening. But just a couple things like that, and then to provide a couple more experiences like in full, right? For the community, we used to do a bunch of charity work with some of the charities you're familiar with, and like in the fitness space. But to provide that same thing where people can come work out, meet people, eat some delicious peanut butter snack bars, jump in a ice barrel cold plunge, perhaps get into a sauna. We're trying to figure a couple other experiences out that we can provide that like change my life.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And bring people together.
Yeah.
Well, I love it.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely be on the lookout for your new products.
I will make sure that you get to try it before it gets out there, for sure.
Well, before we close up, let's remind everybody, if they want to try Fro Pro now after they've heard this, where can they do that, or how can they do that?
Easiest thing, you can go to your local Whole Foods if you're in Florida, and ask for Fro Pro. It's usually right there, either right at the checkout aisle or at one of the cases that hold coffees, waters. Sometimes it's just there's like some ice cream products by it. But yeah, Fro Pro Snack Bar, organic peanut butter snack bar. You can also go onto our website. We offer subscription services, direct, again, we mail direct. You can find us on Amazon. We prefer that you come to our website, just because it's, again, you get that experience just like you would as Amazon. Again, we love Amazon because they do allow anybody to access our product. But yeah, reach out to us if you have any questions. We'd love we'd love to hear from you. You're not going to get a bot. You're not going to get customer service. You'll get my wife, Chelsea, Emily or Danny, or myself. And we just, we love to hear from people and understand what's good, what's not good. If you like it, you don't like it. We like feedback. So please check us out, or you can find me on Instagram at MWAR Williams on Instagram, LinkedIn, Matt Williams, Facebook, Matt Williams. I think that's it.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
I really appreciate you coming out. I hope I was able to provide some goal-setting experience.
You definitely did.
Cool. Cool.
Well, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Remember that growth and recovery are possible, and it can all start today. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Banyan Treatment Centers, and make sure you're subscribing for notifications of new episodes. And please don't forget to leave us a review. If you or someone you know are struggling, call us today at 888-515-7706. Thanks for joining us today on the Banyan Podcast.